Let's start it off with the Fail Mary game and also a renewal of the saddest game in history, the one that immediately preceded the Malcolm Butler game, as a matter of fact, that you just mentioned there, Super Bowl 49. The 2014 title game, Aaron Rodgers on 1.5 legs, had his heart broken a half dozen times in the second half and overtime. He tried to gut it out, but his teammates couldn't get out of their own way. Russ and company pulled the miraculous comeback, but really just a heartbreaker if you were a Packers fan for that one. In this one, the Packers are plus 2.5 up in Seattle. 45.5 is the total on this one. I got to tell you, the bookmakers have it upside down in my book, because I think I'm even reading it wrong. The Seahawks are at home and they're a dog plus 2.5. They're wrong. Dameshek is right. Hear me now, believe me later. Seattle wins this one 24-23. Hench, how say you?
Oh my God, it's so crazy. We don't, we as our listeners can tell, we do no pre-production for these episodes. But
Why would I tell you what I'm going to pick? What would be the intrigue of that, of me knowing your
our
picks?
cars are rubbing up against each other in our garages, in a non-sexual way. You were on the Seahawks out of the gate.
Speak for yourself.
You were like, this is a good team. And then they had all those injuries, and you were like, just hold on, gang. Don't abandon the Seahawks. And you were right, man. They took that gut punch, special teams touchdown against the Jets a couple weeks ago, down 21-7, Rodgers driving, Big Cat gets the pick six. They win a tough road game, the time zones. Then last week, they get the 41-yard Kyler to Wilson TD to start the game, another stomach punch, and they smoke the Cardinals the rest of the game. I'm with you, man. I think the Seahawks win this one 24-20.
Wow. That's right. It was always going to be a slow burn, a new head coach, but in his last couple of stops with McDonald, he turns the defense mighty. So, of course, he was going to do that in Seattle, especially with the pieces they have. And then Geno Smith on the other side. I mean, the weapons, here comes JSN on the pro level, plus Metcalf and all, and Ken Walker hasn't played lately, but Zach Charbonnet is playing very nicely. But once you get Walker back there, that 1-2 punch, it's one of those things where we decided in summertime, if not before, maybe even last football season, who the contenders are in the NFC. And it didn't include Seattle. And so it's hard for us to accept that they are now. They feel like an interloper to us, but they're legit and they can make some hay come January, whether you like it or not. If you're a Lions or Eagles guy and you just assume that's your title game, the team, even more than the Rams in my book, that can disrupt those assumptions, it's the Seattle Seahawks right now. Eddie Spaghetti, how say you?
I'm different than you guys. I love the Packers. I wanted the Packers. I picked the Packers to win the NFC North this offseason, which I brought up pretty frequently. I just think here there's a huge glaring hole with the Seahawks, and then they're just a terrible rushing offense. I understand Geno Smith throws for a bunch of yards, but so does Jordan Love. And the Packers are a top 10 offense and a top 10 defense. And I just feel like what's the signature victory for the Seahawks? Like they lost their home field advantage because they have a lot of terrible losses at home to the Giants, to the Niners. They lost to the Rams, the Bills. Like there's no longer that like mystique of going up to Seattle there. And I just feel like beating the Broncos in week 1 when Bo Nix wasn't playing well, or like the Dolphins without Tua. There's not a ton of like really good wins in my opinion. And I feel like the Packers, their only loss is that weird Brazil game to the Eagles. Obviously they dropped 2, but one of them was close to the Lions. And they lost the in-division game to the Vikings by 2 points. I think the Packers are for real. They have a lot of quality victories. I like this team as well-rounded. Plus what Josh Jacobs is doing in terms of being like almost rushing for 150 yards a game. I just think that the Packers are a really well-rounded team. They're going to win this game and cover.
I don't
Interesting.
disagree that the Packers are good. I don't disagree with that. This is a good game.
Absolutely. Yeah. Fascinating game. And I hadn't really considered the fact that Jordan Love is kind of like Geno Smith in a lot of ways, and characteristics and propensity to throw a high volume of picks and all of that. Yeah. Fascinating game here. Looking forward to see this. I think though, Eddie Spaghetti, you're reacting to what was a defense that wasn't right because of injury and also because of head coach philosophy hadn't really settled in. I think it's starting to take as the season rolls on here. Big one for defining what the Packers and Seahawks are going to be through December and into the playoffs, settled on Sunday night, I think. Next up, Super Bowl 35 redo. I think the worst game, the worst Super Bowl ever. And if it's not, it's the Broncos and Falcons. And if it's not that, it's the Patriots and Rams. Those would be my three contenders, I think, for worst Super Bowl ever. At least Super Bowl 5. People like to say Super Bowl 5, but that one ended on a kick, a head-on kick. They have a rookie kicker. That at least had that intrigue. Anyhow, I bring this one up because it's our biggest number of the season so far. The Giants at home, plus 16. You can see it at 16 and a half in some places. It's bumped around a little bit. Total is 42 and a half in honor of Super Bowl 35. Final score, Ravens 34, Giants 7. Zay Flowers gets a touchdown, plus 140. Lamar Jackson throws 2 touchdown passes. And a very particular play here coming off the bye. Baltimore comes out hot first drive, ends in a touchdown. Payout there is plus 150. Hench, how say you?
It's so wild. You're as our NFL historian, of course, you were all over the Super Bowl rematch and that final score. Without thinking about that game, I came in at an eerily similar score: Ravens 30, Giants 6.
Wow.
This is a nice little cupcake for the Ravens as they desperately try to reel in the Steelers, who are pulling away.
I know that number's so huge and we talk about it and sweat it every time it comes up. But I mean, how are you going to go against Baltimore and for the Giants when we know at this point the Giants are laying down? I mean, I think pretty openly now laying down. Eddie Spaghetti, you're in New York. What's the buzz on the Gents?
This is really, all of the low points the last few seasons with the Giants. Like, this is really one of the lowest points of it, because you have 16 points, the 2 touchdowns, 2 2-point conversions, and you're at home. The tickets prices to get in, you can get in for a handful of pennies in this game. No, people can't give away their tickets. No way. In the cold weather, watching this team lose, please. Plus, like, the weird thing about the Giants is, like, a couple of years back, and the year they went to Minnesota in the playoff game they won, was they beat the Ravens in that game. That's like one of Lamar's few losses to the NFC. I'm not sure how many. It's like 1 or 2 losses, and the Giants are one of them. But this Ravens team, like, they're terrible against the pass. They're giving up 25 points a game. The Giants are barely averaging 14 points on offense. Of course, it's going to be a blowout, and it's going to continue being a blowout until John Maris stops employing his family members in charge of player personnel, because the same thing will happen. You can keep firing coaches, you can keep firing GMs, you can keep bringing in players, and they're going to either be a bust because they don't develop them, or they're going to get injured on MetLife's turf. So, and then what's the best part about this draft? Oh, cool, you can get Shedeur Sanders. And then Dion a week ago was talking about how to Antonio Pierce, he wants to bring his kid to Vegas. So the undisputed consensus top quarterback doesn't even want to play in your town. The Giants are a total
First Juan
disgrace.
Soto, now this.
I told Hench before we started, I care more about Yankees hot stove and I guess what the Rangers will trade for next or whatever than care about watching this garbage football. The NFL to me is taking a total backseat to all the other sports. Terrible to say during an NFL pick show, but this is how disgusted the Giants have me. I hope they lose 50-0.
Would you go for $30? What if me and Hench
if somebody paid me, I'd go, because by the time you're driving, they had the gas, getting the food, the tailgate, the beers. No way. It's not.
Hench and I both throw $20 your way. Will you go? Is that enough for you?
Oh, solo?
Yeah.
Well,
no.
You're going to obliterate a day in your life for $40. Like it's
$100? You won't go to the Giants game? $100?
Spaghetti has 8 screens in front of him. The Giants won't be one of the games he chooses to
okay. Well, what's it going to cost to get you to go to this game?
$1,000.
Yeah, I mean, $1,000, I'd do it. In during money, I'd do it for $1,000. But I'd rather the Giants field a competent team next year. There's no.
Wait a minute. We gave him $1,000, but he's watching a different game on his phone. Got to watch the game. That was part of the deal.
If it's 4 figures, you got to go shirtless at least, and you got to paint something disparaging on your chest, right on your tits. It's got to say something about like fire this guy or that guy. I don't know what.
Anyway,
dark times.
And he's when he's been married for 10 years, they'll be tits. They're pecs now. But,
Oh, okay.
trust me. I know
All
this.
right. I didn't have my terminology right.
Yeah,
All right, let's move on.
I was just gonna say I'll have Juan Soto body soon.
Oh, yeah. By the way, what the hell is that photo floating around of Juan Soto? He has a full on, like he's 8 months
pregnant.
along.
He's pregnant, and I'm buying in the rumors that he's like actually in his mid-30s, not until like 26.
That would be delightful.
Whatever makes you feel better about that.
It does.
Back to football. The Chiefs are playing the Browns. This reminds me of 2020 when the Browns did the ultimate Browns move in the history of the Browns, or I guess it was off of this postseason. The Browns with Baker Mayfield and their head coach sick with COVID in his basement back in Northeast Ohio not only beat the Pittsburgh Steelers, they beat them in Pittsburgh in a playoff game, then went to Arrowhead to face the mighty Chiefs and almost knocked them off. And the reaction to that was, okay, a year later was, we got to move on from Baker Mayfield. We got to do better than this. What the hell? What the hell, Browns? This is why you're the Browns and why you have Deshaun Watson. In this one, the Browns are +4. I find this number very fishy. And no one over the last 3 years has talked more than we have about the Chiefs' inability to cover amidst their dynasty, that they can't cover, especially at home. This one's on the road, but still, the bum Cleveland Browns are only a home dog by 4 against the Chiefs. What gives here? Total is 43.5. I find this one very fishy, but I can't go against rational thought here. The Chiefs win at 26-19. Pacheco gets a touchdown, even money on that. Mahomes rushes for over 25 yards, +215 on that. He runs a fair amount. Myles Garrett and company chasing him around. Bad tackles in that situation. 15 has to run a couple of times. He'll snap off 25+ yards there. Shortest touchdown under 1.5 yards, -130 is your payout there. Hench, how say you?
Well, I'm in your eyes, 27-20. Chiefs. This line is, I know on
general again, we're right on the number, Hench. It's what you and me are.
General principle, you're supposed to go, this line's in the wrong direction, and then you go in the direction that it's wrong in. We're supposed to, we're supposed to have the Browns money line with this fishy line. But this is a line so out of whack, the Chiefs can be bad again, as they are every week, and still cover. You know how my golden retriever is not just the dumbest dog in the world, it's the dumbest living creature on planet Earth. So obviously, like most dogs, you pump fake with the tennis ball and he'll fall for it in perpetuity, right? Like incapable of learning, kind of like an NFL linebacker. Hey, NFL linebackers, Patrick Mahomes is not going to throw the ball. He's over the line of scrimmage. He's going to pump fake you. He's going to pump fake you. Hey, Browns, here's what's going to happen. He's going to break the pocket. He's going to be running for a first down. You've got a great angle to fucking blow him up. He's going to pump fake, and you're going to jump because you're dumber than my golden retriever. The fucking shit that these guys fall for, it's Mahomes. He's going to pump fake. By the way, you're also not going to bat it down, even if he is behind the line of scrimmage. Like, all you're doing, you're the jackass who jumps in the air running to first base. I'm going to jump in the air and slow down immediately. It's like, run through 15's chest. I don't, it drives me crazy. And obviously, the Chargers had that game won if what's his name? Headley, out of the linebacker, he falls for the jelly leg. Mahomes is not Gale Sayers. He's not Barry Sanders. Like, why are you whiffing on a quarterback? It fucking drives me nuts. And
it's a great question. Is he, I'm trying to think off the top of my head. Tom Brady never ran. Peyton, Breeze never took off. And then Steve Young would take off a ton, and Russell Wilson, Steve Young, Russell Wilson, the two best functional scramblers, probably. And you at some point have to include Patrick Mahomes, but is he the least athletic of a guy who can snap off an 11-yard run?
It's insane.
Fairly regularly ever? I mean, think about it. who is less the way he runs and everything, he looks like he's about as fast as I am.
And as opposed to Josh Allen, who breaks the pocket, and that run against the Rams last week, it's like, what? He's running a 4.6. Like that run when he got outside, you're like, no one's catching him. Mahomes, like it just, what does he do? He's got those hips, and then he does a little jiggle.
The
and
tiptoes.
A professional
yeah, right.
The tiptoe on
NFL
the sideline is
linebacker.
crazy. Yeah.
Like obviously, if Mahomes was brought into camp as a running back, like he'd get cut on day one. You're like, well, you're unathletic and you're not fast and you can't. And then he gets into space against an NFL linebacker, and it just like it just drives me nuts. Anyway, I'm so sick.
Great point about the falling. It's one thing in backyard football when you're 11 years old and you're like, you go out about 10 yards and then I'm going to call your name for a fake and I'm going to pretend I'm going to throw it to you, but then you go long and then you do like, hey, Roger. And then the guy turns around like that's too big a sell. Not for NFL linebackers, for apparently. NFL linebackers. Like, you can just do like he's 10 yards over the line of scrimmage.
They have an angle, and it's like he's not going to make it to the sideline. And this is what you dream of. He's a running back now. You get a free shot, and then he holds the ball up, and they go, oh, I better jump straight up in the air. Like a fucking montage of these morons falling for that pump fake. It would be 6 hours long. No one ever keeps their feet. I would just be like, hey guys, we got the Chiefs this week. Guess what? None of you idiots are going to do. If you fucking leave the ground on this guy's fucking pump fake, I'm going to take your jersey off, and it'll be the end of your association with our organization.
Is that in a sexual way? No, that's also not in a sexual way.
This is like Antonio Brown, only I'm taking your jersey. Yeah, but again,
well, perfect storm, because Patrick Mahomes against Myles Garrett, most recently seen down 3 scores in Pittsburgh, shushing the crowd because he got a meaningless sack. Boy, what a team guy he is. Why he is a media darling, I won't understand. Spaghetti, give us your pick on this one.
Yeah, I mean, I know, Shek, you said a couple of days ago that this line was really weird. The more I thought about it, I'm just going to go with the simplest answer. I think the Chiefs, they're going to win this game. They're going to cover this game because they have to, because their next 3 games, I already picked them to lose to the Seals. I think they will lose one of the next 3 to the Texans, and they have the last game of the year versus the Broncos here. So I think they need to definitely get this win, so maybe they could even rest their starters depending on what the Bills do. So they're going to win this game. And I think, this Browns team, with Deshaun, obviously everything was suffering. They were not scoring points on offense. The defense was on the field for a ton. The defense, not nearly the same defense as it was last year. Things have changed since Jameis has been quarterback, but this defense still is not that great, giving up a lot of points. And I do think that he is prone to turnovers. Obviously, I think we're going to get the full Jameis Winston experience. Plus, this Chiefs defense is a top 10 unit in terms of limiting teams of scoring here. So I think they will force some turnovers. Plus, Chiefs are getting some nice news. I don't think he's going to play Sunday, but he is practicing today. Hollywood Brown, all of a sudden this Chiefs receiver corps doesn't really have maybe an A-level guy, but having Nuke Hopkins and having Worthy, and now having a healthy Hollywood Brown plus Kelsey in the tight ends, the offense looks pretty good. So I like the Chiefs a lot going forward. I know people are souring on them, but they're going to win this game. I still think they're going to be potentially in the Super Bowl.
Next, Houston plays host to the Dolphins. When I see Miami and Houston on a piece of paper as an old man who likes football, I think of that Monday night game, Earl Campbell's breakout, Monday Night Football, him streaking down the sideline in the Astrodome. It also makes me think of the origin of the song that 2 pro football teams' fan bases sang at the same time, and it's fascinating who started it. And who's the thief? Who's the copycat? The one without dignity? Because I remember Love You Blue in Houston, because we're the Houston Oilers, Houston Oilers, Houston Oilers #1. And then at seemingly the exact same moment, Dolphins fans were singing in the Orange Bowl, because we're the Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins #1. I don't know who the stinker is, but they both wear aqua and light blue. It was very confusing for young Dave. I don't respect whoever stole the other song. In this one, the Texans win it 31-27, with the Texans laying 3. I should mention, and the total is 46.5. Hench, how say you?
Well, finally we're in separate garages.
Oh,
This
okay.
Texans team, what we were told is all will be right when Nico Collins comes back. Everybody is panicking. Don't worry. And then you beat the Jags by 3 after losing at home to the Titans. Like this, I don't know what's up in Houston, but it ain't right. And this week they lose outright to Tua and the Finns 29-24.
Ooh, juicy, because that means the Dolphins are still alive. Spaghetti, how say you?
Yeah, I'm with Hench too. I wouldn't even take the points of the Dolphins. I like them a lot in this game. I think that we're seeing some more negative criticism towards CJ Stroud, which I didn't really expect. People thought he was going to be smooth sailing, back deep in the playoffs, but he's kind of been struggling. I mean, Tua's missed time and has more touchdown passes than CJ Stroud. Plus, like, I don't know how much you care about quarterback rating, but his rating is in the low 50s. Like, that's not what we really expected to have CJ Stroud this year. And I just think the Dolphins now, obviously, when their offense is clicking, they've scored 30 points in 3 of their last 4 games. When they scored 30 points in those games, they won all those games. So I think it's going to happen again. I like Dolphins in this one.
All right, let's move on to one of the signature games of Week 15. A lot of buzz in the Keystone State for obvious reasons here. Breezewood Bowl, as Mike Tomlin called it. Tomlin, 9 games over 500 career when his team is a dog. That's a pretty impressive number there. Less so when you look at him as a heavy favorite on the road against a bum team. Then it gets embarrassing. The Eagles in this one laying 5.5. Total is 43.5. I get those who are saying this game is going to go under based on the way both teams like to run the ball and everything else. I say the Eagles get this one 27-20. This one goes over. I kind of like it as somebody who is, I don't know if I'm a beta. Maybe I should just accept I am. I don't know if that's if that makes me pathetic, but I kind of like that George Pickens is out because the Steelers have a built-in excuse. That's nice. Now they don't have as much pressure. If it's George Pickens, it's like, let's see how we really stack up against the heavyweights. Like, we lost by 2-3 touchdowns. Yeah, but we didn't have our one good pass catcher out there. So let's see him again in January. Let's make the playoffs. I do think the guy filling in for George Pickens primarily, or the one who should in terms of pedigree, is Mike Williams. 25 or more receiving yards, pays out at plus 135. That's pretty nice. Like I said before, I think A.J. Brown's belly aching results in him getting targets. A.J. Brown over 5.5 receptions in this one. He also gets a touchdown. Plus 130. Hope to be wrong about all of that, and the Steelers win this one because, boy, it would put them in the playoffs and let them put their feet up instead of having to sweat the games upcoming against the Ravens and Chiefs. Hench, how say you?
In poker, they say if you don't know who the fish at the table is, it's you. If you're wondering if you're a beta, you're a beta. Now,
Okay.
do you know
What are you, an alpha, Mr. Tough
Do you know
Guy?
how hard it is to be a beta on this podcast? I mean, that's your super beta. Like Spaghetti, Hench, Shek. Look, Shek's on the record.
Spaghetti could beat you and me up at the same time.
Yeah, I know.
He could take us. He would like the coconuts and just bonk our heads together. So I don't know who you are shooting your
throw
mouth
us down
on.
that alley in Vegas simultaneously with each arm ambidextrous. So you're on the record. When you're wrong, you say you're wrong.
That's
and
right.
When I'm wrong, I say you're wrong too. But I'm wrong. I watched Russell Wilson in Denver and I was like, yeah, NFL careers don't dip that deeply and then bounce back. But the guy is having a really good season. The team's bought in, and I think the Steelers go in there and win it. I like the Steelers 24-23. I think it's weird that and obviously we were all rooting for Leggett to pull that fucking ball in and for that guy to lose $3.1 million on the Eagles money line, because that's the kind of society we are. But the Eagles, it's weird to be on a 9-game winning streak and the locker room is coming apart. But I kind of believe it because I think they know they're not that good. And there is something weird about Jalen. Like you can't pass for 108 yards in an NFL game if it's not sleeting. So I think the Steelers go in there and get it. I'm sold. I'm all in on Russell Hustle Bustle.
I love it. And the thought experiment in my weekly conversation with Randy Bauman and Bill Crawford on DVE in Pittsburgh was about exactly that. Because for whatever reason, it's taken on this 3 games that the Steelers have in the next 11 days or 11 days. Those games are going to be played. It's like, can the Steelers get one of them? It feels like that's the national conversation. If the Steelers win one, then they're okay. So which one would you ideally take? I mean, the Ravens is the obvious one because it wins them the division. But then again, if you're really pie-eyed about the Steelers, beating the Chiefs maybe gives them a chance to get the 1 seed. But then again, as I said, if they beat the Eagles, it's not meaningful in terms of the conference. But it would get the Steelers to a station where they're in the playoffs, and then everything else that happens is the cherry on top. At least you would know, no matter what happens between now and after New Year's, we're into the tournament, and that would be a different position and a juicy one for the Steelers to be in when they've been chasing it to the last minute of every season for the last half decade now. Spaghetti, how say you?
Yeah, talking about weird lines, I just think 5.5 is just way too much for the Steelers. I don't know
Hmm.
what it is. Like, do people have like Mike Tomlin slash Steelers fatigue? And they not really have they not bought into the offense yet? Do they not realize how good this defense is? I don't know what it is. Or they are, overhyping the Eagles here. And I agree with Hench too. I think that, winning, having not lost since the end of September is not a good thing. I just feel like I'm a believer in the law of averages. You got to get a loss in your system here. I think it's going to happen in this game. If you want to take the 5.5, fine. I like the Steelers outright here. The locker room troubles are not good either. Jalen Hurts has not really been a threat in the passing game here, so I think it's one less thing the Steelers have to worry about. Even not having Pickens on offense, I still think there's enough with the ground game there to kind of control the ball, control the clock. I think this is like the first time maybe in weeks we've brought up about O-line play on this podcast here, but I think Zach Frazier, the center, has like moved himself into like potential. He's not going to win it, but like rookie of the year conversations. What do we talk about? The Eagles, Jalen Carter, that front four. I think he does a really nice job in this game. Kind of neutralizes Jalen Carter. I think it's going to be a big factor. So yeah, a lot to like about the Steelers. They scored 71 points in their last 2 games. This is like unheard of for the Steelers, and I think they're going to keep rolling offensively. So I like them to win this one.
Well, and the Browns have a halfway decent defense, obviously not as good as last year, but they did hang 27 on them last week. So maybe I'm skeptical, though, against Jalen Carter, who I said to Ross Tucker earlier this week, I think is maybe your defensive player of the year. He's not going to get it because of, playing too much off of statistics, but he has been the dominant piece. I think the Steelers are going to have a tough time running the ball. To Hedges' point, though, keep in mind this win streak starts with Sirianni taunting Eagles fans. And now, 9 games in, the quarterback and star receiver are fighting. Weird team. Weird team. Next up, Colts, Broncos, Equine Bowl. Broncos laying 4. Total is 44. I think the Broncos survive this one 20-19 and pretty much spell the end of a playoff shot for the Colts here. Jonathan Taylor gets a touchdown plus 110. Jonathan Taylor goes over 25 receiving yards. Payout there plus 330. Sheesh. Bo Nix goes over 25 rush yards. That's your spaghetti QB rush special of the week. Plus 175 is your payout on that one. Hench, how say you?
This is one of those, you pick a game and you're like, I have no rationale for it. I don't have an explanation. I think Bo Nix is good. I think Cortland Sutton's good. I think Sean Payton has, proven that the Russell Wilson misadventure was not the end of his ability as a quarterback whisperer. All that said, I think just to keep it super messy and interesting, right? This is what happens in the NFL. It starts to make sense, and then there's a result where you go like, wait a minute, the Colts are in the playoff picture, and this is one of those games. I have Colts 23, Broncos 20.
Spaghetti.
I think this is going to be a blowout. I'm watching. I'm going to be completely wrong, but I think this is going to be the biggest lopsided blowout in this week, maybe outside of the Giants-Ravens game. But I just think that everything the Colts like don't do well plays into the Broncos. Like, I mean, leading the league in sacks. I think Richardson, and he has the lowest completion percentage. I think they're going to get after him. You can't win games when you're not really a threat to move the ball through the air. And obviously, we know how good the defensive backs, especially Surtain, is in Denver. And I just think Bo Nix has completely turned around. The first month of the year, we were like, this guy's a joke, and now he's, the Giants fans hate themselves for passing on him because he looks like a franchise quarterback. I think there's definitely enough weapons on the offense, and they're going to score enough points to win this game. I don't think I'd be shocked if the Colts score more than 13 points in this one. I think the Broncos are going to be well in the mid 20s here. So, yeah, Broncos win this game all the way.
Now you see, what you don't understand is that Richardson is going to completely neutralize Surtain because Surtain blankets his man and Richardson throws it nowhere near the receiver. That's how you neutralize Surtain.
4D chess. All right, next up, Sad Sack Bowl. The two teams, I think this one keeps being described since the week got going here as possible Super Bowl preview here. The Buffalo Bills, the Detroit Lions. Lions laying 2.5. Total is 54.5. Man, I don't think, among the sad sack franchises in pro football, no one roots for the Browns and Jets at this point because of ownership and some of their specious decision making. Vikings, I think people can get into a little bit, but boy, the Lions, everybody loves this team. And I think people really have embraced Bills Nation and jumping through tables on Friday night for a Sunday game and all the rest of it. I think the Bills go into Detroit and win this one 37-33 in a classic. Josh Allen gets a touchdown on the ground plus 115. St. Brown goes over 70 receiving yards. Jahmyr Gibbs goes over 25 receiving yards. Your payout there is plus 110. Hench, how say you?
Well, this one's a wild one because you can look at it in a couple of ways, right? What the Rams defense is good. What they did to the Niners Thursday night, like they get pressure, they've got athletes, and Josh Allen shredded them. Obviously, first team to score 6 touchdowns without a turnover and lose in NFL history. You can look at it the other way. That Bills defense gave up 44 points to the Rams, and
Agreed.
now they're going into the offense factory that is the Detroit Lions, the wagon, the juggernaut. And so I know that the Tony pick is the Bills to go in there, but I think the Lions keep on winning at home, 31-27. I do think if this is the Super Bowl preview, we're going to have wellness checks on both fan bases, right? I mean, we're going to have counselors available during the game. I don't know who survives. My buddy Mike Mant says, it would be worse for Bills fans. Really? I know the 4 in a row, but man, this feels like the Lions window.
Yeah, I mean, seizing on the opportunity and all of that in 2024, but just, pulling back. Yeah, it's sort of like I used to pine for the Red Sox and Cubs to play in the World Series. And boy, wouldn't that be great because someone would finally get over. But the other side of the coin is you would lose if you're the Bills and you lose in the Super Bowl to the Lions. Like, I don't know how you ever come back from that, or vice versa. Like, the Lions finally get the one, like, yeah, we lost. We lost to the Bills, who could never win a Super Bowl until they played us. Now we've lost. Yeah, I guess it would be worse for the Bills. I'm with Mant, as a matter of fact, on that.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because, of course, your dream would have come true if Grady Little had taken Pedro Martinez out after 7 innings and Alex Gonzalez had fielded the ground ball. I know Bartman gets blamed for it. Bartman's not a major league shortstop. Your shortstop made an error. Like, Gonzalez must be thrilled that the only name anyone remembers is Bartman. That should have been Cubs Red Sox 2003.
That's a cold case. Hench and Dameshek really are two men of justice. Just as we've taken Rich Gedman to task. He's the culprit. Bob Stanley even Bob Stanley, who deserves plenty of grief from Red Sox fans who are old people now or dead. He gets but That even wasn't a wild pitch. Rich Gedman let that ball go by in game 6 in 86, and somehow Bill Buckner's the one who wears it for all of time. Spaghetti, how say you?
Yeah, this is the game if I'm shirtless at MetLife that I'm watching on my phone. Unless this is the, I wonder if this is the 4 o'clock game. If it is, either way, I wonder if Josh Allen, if you asked him like honestly, like, are you happy this game is finally in like a climate controlled like dome instead of being outside in like the frigid, snowy weather of Buffalo here? I wonder if he has like a little reprieve. He's like, all right, cool, it's gonna be 72 degrees in here. This is great for me. I just think that speaking of Josh Allen versus Jared Goff, if it's late in this game and you have to convert a fourth down or a third and short, just something to keep the drive alive, Josh Allen's the guy you want. And that's no disrespect to Jared Goff, who's been fantastic this year. These teams are both very, very similar, although I do think the Detroit Lions rush offense is a little bit better, but they're very, very similar offensively and defensively. But Josh Allen's clearly right now the MVP. And I just think that if this game will be close and there's going to be a play that has to be made and you want your best player with the ball. And I think that just Josh Allen, he's going to get it done, whether it's with his arm or it's with his legs. And I just think they're going to eke out a close victory here. So I like the Bills to cover this game and to win this game. On the road, not saying it's going to change how I feel about the Super Bowl. If these teams meet in the Super Bowl, it could barely go the Detroit Lions way. But it's going to be 2 months exactly to the day when the last time the Bills did not score 30 points in a game. And the Lions, the Thanksgiving game, they had a couple games with 20 point performances. I just think that's the difference.
All right, listen, I this is the Super Bowl. I am going to speak on behalf of Football America. If it's Chiefs, Eagles, or Lions, Bills, I think Football America clearly wants the latter option there. Now, to wrap up this pregame show, which is already pretty meaty here, I have to point out that Bucks and Chargers in some NFL weeks would be the game of the week. This one's fascinating. Baker Mayfield, kind of, sort of. He's not going to get real close to the MVP, but he deserves a fair amount of buzz for sort of surviving, not having his 2 top targets in the pass game. And in general, the Bucks doing what I didn't think was possible, which is I think they now are going to end up winning the NFC South here. I thought the Falcons were going to get it. We'll see about that. Meantime, here come the Chargers once again, almost knocking off the Chiefs. Would it stun you if this team is playing in the AFC title game, the Chargers? Here they are laying 3 at home, 45.5. Justin Herbert, who's got 2 first names, going up against Baker Mayfield, who has 0 first names, 0 wins on the flight back home. The Chargers win this one 24-20. Hench, how say you?
Strong disagree. I feel like Baker Mayfield, I mean, I'm with you on the Baker Mayfield love. Like every week you're like, well, now, I haven't heard of this receiver. I haven't heard of this receiver. And then last week, Jalen McMillan scores 2 touchdowns. And I'm like, who's Jalen McMillan? Like, I'm looking him up. I'm literally like going like, who is this guy's, Baker Mayfield has passed open. He's thrown open for 2 touchdowns. And I go, oh, this is nice for Patriot fans. Jalen Polk is no longer the second, even the second best wide receiver draft pick out of Washington from last year. Now Jalen McMillan's better than him. Jalen Polk is another Patriot bust in the draft, but Baker, it just doesn't matter. It's got to matter, but it doesn't matter. He moves the ball, he scores touchdowns, and watching Herbert airmail a wide open Josh Palmer again cost me the fantasy playoffs. The only place Herbert could miss Palmer, and I mean Palmer was so naked. The only way you can miss him is if you underthrow it by 20 yards, he adjusts and catches it. If you put it out he's got all this space and Herbert just throws the ball 70 yards and misses him. And that was the game. And that was my game. And I keep watching Herbert. And I know other people have said this, like, they go, well, he doesn't have Keenan Allen. He's like, they don't have the weapons. And it's like, I'm like, I don't know how good that guy is. I'm just like, I'm not sold. I'm sold on Harbaugh. I'm sold on the rebuild, but I think Baker gets this one 27-20.
Interesting. Spaghetti, bring it on home.
I actually agree completely with Hench with, if you told me you could take Baker or Justin Herbert going forward, I feel like I would take Baker right now. I just feel like he has like that
Ooh,
clutch gene.
spicy take.
He has like that. You don't feel like you're out of the game with him. With Herbert, it just there's always like an excuse involved, and to a certain point, you got to get it done. You got to win the games. Now it's not like a hypocrite because on the rundown sheet I highlighted the Bucks. I'm like I'm taking the Bucks all the way, and then you just start looking at their injuries. Antoine Winfield, one of their best defensive players, defensive captain, he's going to be out, and then Bucky Irving did not practice today, and he's just such a dynamic piece of that offense. I think losing those two key players on both sides of the ball, it gives the Chargers a little bit of an edge. Chargers are home. Maybe Herbert shuts us up. I know Lad McConkey's been fantastic. Then I know, but he's banged up too. It's the Chargers defense is really good, and they're going to have to really show out in this game, and they're going to have to win this one basically because this Buccaneers offense can score. But I think just the lack of Bucky Irving in the running game and even the pass game too that he helps is going to be the difference in this one. Chargers win a very 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 close one.